When Shakespeare wrote his histories of the Plantagenet kings, he depicted Richard III as a depraved, tormented hunchback who murdered his two nephews so he could claim the throne of England. But subsequent research has thrown doubt on Shakespeare's version of history. Richard's brother, Edward IV, fathered two sons with wife Elizabeth Woodville, with Edward the Elder becoming king upon his death in 1483. But 2 months later, Richard seized the throne and declared the children illegitimate, on the grounds that Edward had been secretly betrothed to another woman at the time of his marriage to Elizabeth. Edward V and his younger brother Richard, Duke of York, were kept in the Tower of London, where they became known as the Princes in the Tower. Richard's reign was tumultuous and bloody, characterized by power struggles within the deeply divided houses of York and Lancaster. The two boys were seen as pawns in the race for power, as well as potential rivals. But having already established their illegitimacy, Richard had far less reason to murder them than certain other figures. Not only that, but Elizabeth Woodville returned to court voluntarily in 1484 and allowed her 6 daughters to mix with Richard's retinue, a surprising act if the king had indeed ordered the murder of her only sons. Richard's kingship lasted only 3 years before Henry Tudor gathered enough support to invade England and defeat the Yorkist forces at the Battle of Bosworth, where Richard died in combat. Henry proclaimed himself Henry VII and took Edward IV's eldest daughter, Elizabeth, as his bride, uniting York and Lancaster in the House of Tudor. But there was no sign of Elizabeth's little brothers. If they were already dead, suspects include would-be kingmaker, the Duke of Buckingham, and John Howard, the Duke of Norfolk. Surprisingly, Henry made no accusations of murder against Richard when he put a bill to Parliament detailing the former king's alleged crimes to justify his own grab for power. In fact, Henry Tudor had more motive than anyone to do away with the little princes. By marrying their sister, he was re-establishing the legitimacy of Edward's children. If they were alive, both boys had a far greater claim on the throne than he. In the first few years of his reign, Henry VII executed a number of Edward IV's nephews, who as Yorkist heirs posed a direct threat to his kingship. Rumors grew that the boys were dead, but it was another 16 years before Richard was directly implicated in their murder. In 1501, James Tyrrell was arrested for supporting a Yorkist rebellion. Under torture, he claimed he had killed the boys at Richard's behest. In 1674, workmen uncovered 2 bodies buried in a box at the Tower of London. In case they were the prince's remains, Charles II had them reinterred in Westminster Abbey. In 1933, the bones were examined, but doctors were unable to conclusively determine their age or sex. As the years passed, public opinion swung towards Richard, and many people argued for his vindication. In 1997, a mock trial presided over by 3 American Supreme Court justices found Richard not guilty of murdering his nephews.